Doctor, did I notice? Are you holding, or were you holding an eagle feather in your hand? Would you tell
Yes, for sure.
would you tell us about the significance of that?
Yeah, so the Gihil is one of our first clans. Um, that place that I showed you, when indigenous people say that they're related to Iwahkutwayak, all of the living things in the world, the plant world, the animal world, the birds. This is one of the first clans that came so that we would be able to survive here in this country is in this land here, Turtle Island, is the Eagle clan. And so they're one of our original clans. And the role of the eagle, in our teachings, it sits to the east, Segastenuk, where the sun rises. And there's a grandfather eagle and a grandmother eagle. And they teach us about the value of sagituin, love, sagituk, to love one another. And they also teach us about having vision. They fly very high in the sky. They have very good vision. And they also bring our prayers up to Ispamikise Mantu, up in the sky, where Creator is. They help to bring our prayers up there. And the eagle is, such an amazing teacher because they're sometimes, the crow, the crow is like one of the, craziest birds around. And it's one of the few birds that will, try to attack an eagle. It'll go on it, but the eagle will just keep flying higher and higher and higher until the crows, can't breathe anymore because the air becomes so thin. So I think that's really a good symbol for all of us that we always have our naysayers who are always trying to pull us down and jump on our backs. And it just reminds us to keep flying higher above all of that negativity that can sometimes be overwhelming, and to get to that point where you can look down and see the beauty that exists down here in Askita Pamatsu in this earth life. And there's a shiny side and a dull side as well, which reflect us about, the times in life that are perhaps a little bit brighter. And sometimes there's in life the times that are a little bit more difficult. But it's a balance between those two. And it's up to us as individuals to make sure that we look after ourselves so that we too are balanced and living in a good way and carrying ourselves respectfully throughout the land in a way that brings joy and peace and harmony to others, and not sadness and despair and those sorts of things as well.
If you're just tuning in, if you're just joining us, perhaps on the road today, live streaming us via the Mixler audio app, we're talking to physician Dr. James Makokis. Doctor, you've really accomplished something remarkable, and I know that many Albertans and many Canadians are or will be very intrigued to hear about your approach to medicine and to healthcare. Obviously, a very rich understanding of traditional indigenous methods, including medicines and ceremonies, and then, of course, what we might describe as modern medicine. Before we get into your work with Vax Fest and building trust in healthcare, and I'm very curious for your insights into elders and some vaccine hesitancy and all of these types of things. I think people would really be curious to know how you got in. I mean, how you became a physician, what led you to med school, how you find that balance between traditional methods and so-called modern methods. Would you take us back a few years?
Sure. Well, I remember like being 4 years old and wanting to be a doctor, and my parents just always encouraged me to do that. And so, like a lot of young people, I did all the things to get into university and to get into medical school. And I'm the first, physician in our family. I have, my mom did do university as well, but the first physician in our family. So I never really had mentors to be like, okay, you have to do this, this, and this. And I got into medical school, and they were giving us a tour and orientation, and they're like, and this is the histology lab, and this is this lab. And I'm like, what is histology? Like, I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do well here. So, got through that. And at the same time, our elders would always be saying to me, no, Sim, like my grandchild, go out and learn their medicine, but come home and you have to learn our medicine too. And so when I finished medical school, they started taking me under their wing to show me what our medicines are. And I went, and there's so many of, like, we're so blessed here in Turtle Island because so many of the things that we need to look after ourselves grow naturally across the prairies and in the boreal forest here. And I went from driving down the highway to seeing, oh, there's lots of weeds, to being like, wow, there's heart medicine and lung medicine and kidney medicine and skin medicine and brain medicine and eye medicine and ear medicine and all these sorts of things. And it also, made me realize how important it is for us to protect our lands, because some of these medicines grow in such a sensitive area that, there's so few of them. And so when we go out on the lands, and, in Alberta, we talk a lot about development in terms of the oil and gas industry and things like that, which are important to maintain people's livelihoods and all of those things. But we also have to remember that the Indigenous medical system, the Cree medical system, and Anishinaabe medical system is on the land and in places that we need to protect so that we have something that we're leaving for the future generations. And so, in COVID, I think we have a really good understanding of what happens to a medical system when it's under stress. It's been about 19 months that the medical system has been under stress. And we're to the point now in the province of Alberta and soon Saskatchewan, where triage care is happening, where physicians will have to make those difficult decisions based on an algorithm of someone's age if they're going to receive care. And people are starting to see how important the medical system is and what happens when it is under stress and, destroyed, which has happened here in this province. Now, you have to put that into perspective for Indigenous people whose medical system has also been under attack and dismantled systematically by the Canadian state for the past 150 years, where we have not had access to our medical system. We couldn't leave our reserve for 66 years under the past system, which was implemented as policy and law by the elected government of this country, where our people in residential school were experimented on by physicians and scientists in either nutrition experiments where they withheld food from children and then gave them vitamins to see, if their condition improved, or the development of vaccines, the BCG vaccine on the Fort Capel Indian residential school children, or the sterilization of Indigenous women. And again, speaking to the fact that Indigenous women are the landowners, when we reflect on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, is it no wonder that there's an overrepresentation of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in this country when I said that Indigenous women are the landowners and they're the leaders within our nation? So when you start to think about things from all of those perspectives, you can see why the situation exists that is been purposeful and which necessitates, in VaxFest, for example, why we needed to target our and work with our Indigenous youth in a very different way that engage them where they're at. Indigenous VaxFest is targeted for Indigenous youth, and it uses Indigenous in social media influencers, like in this picture, Kendra Jesse and her partner, Notorious Cree, who has like over 3 million followers on TikTok.
That guy is amazing.
That
guy is amazing. Will you please tell him to return my DMs? Will you tell him to get in touch with me? I've been trying to book that. No offense. I've been trying to book that guy on the show since November.
I'll message him now.
Please do. That guy is
Let's get back to
unbelievable. Sorry to interrupt.
So, no, that's okay. So, Dr. Potts and I, Dr. Lana Potts, she's a Blackfoot physician. And again, this is another like sort of parallel. Like, they say Crees and Blackfeet can't get along. Well, Dr. Potts and I helped to create the Power of 100 presents VaxFest. And the Power of 100 really is looking at the concept of having 100% immunity for our people to ensure that we're here in another 100 years. And if you look at the symbol of it, it's a circle of buffalo that are facing outward, and they're putting their buffalo calves in the center. Because when there's a threat to a buffalo herd, they do that. They put their next generation, their calves, in the center so that they know if their calves are not protected, there will be no buffalo herd. And so they teach us to face that threat head on. And that's what we have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, is realizing that the threat is COVID-19. The solution is to protect our next generations and our elders, which is through the COVID-19 vaccine. And for our people to remember that in 1876, when our elders enshrined in Treaty Number 6, the Medicine Chest Clause, which again is a symbol of Western healthcare, Western medicine, and those sorts of things, they knew that in the future there would be illnesses that would be coming to this land that we did not yet have medicines for. And so it's asserting our right, our elders' vision, our ancestors' vision for us, that we would be protected here today. And that's what, using the COVID-19 vaccine is protecting our future and realizing our ancestors' vision, and that they thought of us more than 150 years ago. If there was a problem, that we would have a way out of it. And so it's reminding our people that we are doing that. It is a part of our teachings to look after one another and to think about the next generations. And so it's an amazing, it's kind of like Coachella meets your AHS vaccine clinic, right? Like, it's fun. There's, influencers, you get to take TikTok videos and Instagram, and you win prizes, and there's DJs. Oh, and just by the way, you also get to be protected against COVID-19. And so we've had some really amazing stories where young people were like, we came because we saw Notorious Cree was getting his vaccine. Or, this 90-year-old elder who the nurses went to their house like 3 times, and he wouldn't get it. He came out because he wanted to be celebrated. So we had Fawnwood and Dallas Waskahat, who are amazing singers, from the Saddle Lake and Frog Lake Cree Nation, do an honor song for him. Because this is exactly what we're doing it for, is our knowledge keepers and our young people, and they need to be celebrated. They don't have a positive experience with the healthcare system. And every single person that gets vaccinated, we cheer for them, we clap for them, and we celebrate them because they're doing an amazing thing. They're addressing their systemic mistrust of the healthcare system because all the reasons that I shared with you. And so it does take a very different approach that's required. We're hoping our next clinic will be in the Onion Lake Cree Nation from September 15th to 16th, and then 17th to 8th. Oh my goodness, 15th to 16th, October 15th to 16th. And then moving through Saskatchewan and Alberta, because 75% of all cases of COVID amongst First Nations are within the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, which just so happen to have had the most number of residential schools in this country. So you can start to see the parallels as to why Indigenous peoples are mistrustful, from the eradication of the buffalo, which is an act of genocide, to the implementation of residential schools, which is an act of genocide, to experimentation and forced sterilization of Indigenous children and women, which is an act of genocide, to the restriction of movement, which is an act of genocide, to the scalping laws that existed in this country, which still exist in the province of Nova Scotia against Mi'kmaq people, as an act of genocide. So again, on this day, September 30th, please frame your thinking around genocide and not cultural genocide. After World War II, Canada sent representatives to the Convention on Genocide and purposefully removed Lemke's point of cultural genocide as a component of genocide. And they said they would deal with it here locally within this country under the statutes of a form of crime. And so that, when you think about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they list cultural genocide because it's not punishable anymore under international law. And so we freely say in this country that there's been cultural genocide when it's in fact genocide. And we can say cultural genocide because after World War II, Canada removed that from the original definition of this country, of genocide. And so you can see how there's been an insidious, systematic oppression that has forcefully denied Indigenous people to have any sort of existence from the beginning and the creation of this country with, the founder, the first prime minister, who was the architect of residential school, up until the Convention on Genocide, and then continuing today with the situation that we have. So please go and read some of these authors by, Arthur Manuel. He has a couple different books out. He was a leader with the Secwepemc people, which is where the Wet'suwet'en, camp was. Sharon Venn is a Cree lawyer. Tamara Starblanket is a Cree lawyer. James Daschuk is a non-Indigenous author that wrote about experimentation of Indigenous children.
Is that Notorious Cree getting back to you? Is he going to he's going to join us later today?
I'm going to be on.
Yeah, okay, good. Good. I hope, people are going to be scribbling down these authors' names, and I know, because people today, I know it because they're telling us, and because I can feel it. People are looking for ways to infuse meaning into today and to take action on this. And I mean, there's people even in our live chat right now, Doctor, that are saying, let me find an example here. Kim, for example, says, I followed a whole bunch of these influencers because of the Power 100. They've been awesome follows. She's just one of the people that are saying that. I mean, it's remarkable. And I hope that sends a message to the 40 million people that live here, including Indigenous people in Canada, that today is being taken seriously. I saw somebody make a bit of a, do they still say dark humor? I mean, just sort of like a, this kind of a joke that was pretty biting yesterday about T-shirts, orange T-shirts. And I talked to Phyllis yesterday. I mentioned the founder of Orange Shirt Day, and I asked her how she feels about kind of the profit models of the monetization. And she said, hey, listen, there's a lot of big brands that are working with her and with her team to ensure that the profits are going where they should go, etc. Anyway, the tweet said, don't buy your orange shirts from the Bay. They've been infused with smallpox. And I kind of went, right? The stories of these blankets, and I know that, I mean, it's just, to me, that was like, it was I don't know if you want to call it a joke. I mean, it's more kind of commentary than anything. But to me, it touched on what I wanted to talk to you about today as well, which is the enormous trust issues that so many Indigenous people have based on generations, like you said, and I mean, suppression is probably too soft of a word, isn't it? I mean, you have intentionally used the word genocide several times through our conversation to reiterate, and you've provided receipts to reiterate exactly how significant this has been, this is, and how significant our action and our conversations need to be moving forward. And so much of that manifests itself through healthcare, which is why I think your perspective is so important and so fascinating.
Thank you so much. And I just want to give people the opportunity because, a lot of folks are wondering how they can contribute and what they can do. Since Anthony and I were on the Amazing Race Canada in 2019, we've been having a fundraiser to build the Cree Cultural Healing Center on the Kihiwin Cree Nation. We fundraised about $105,000 of our $250,000 goal, where we would have this space where elders and young people can come together, and the young people can learn all of those things from the elders that they weren't allowed to teach when they were in residential school, that it can be a place of culture and revitalization and language and celebration and health, all of those things that we don't get funded for by the federal government in our own nations and our communities. And, if just even 10,000 of your listeners wrote a check for $10 each to the Kihiwin Youth Center, we would be almost finished our goal. The Kihiwin Youth Center is at the Kihiwin Health Services on the Kihiwin Cree Nation. We would love to be finished our goal. COVID has put a real damper on our fundraising efforts. And, I would encourage people to do that. You would make a transformative difference to the young people, to the youth, to the children, and the next generations within Kihiwin Cree Nation.
James, do you know, is there a web address, or can you point us in a specific direction? Because I know that people will take action on this.
So we did have a GoFundMe, and the website made some sort of changes, and we need to put that back up.
Okay.
But if they were to just contact the Kihiwin Cree Nation, the phone number is 780-826-2913, they would, receive your donation and put that towards our fundraiser. And I hope that by next year, we'll be able to have shovels in the ground, and that all people, Indigenous people, non-Indigenous people can come there and learn about one another, because that's what our relationship is supposed to be here on Turtle Island, is equal sharing, equal learning in partnership, traveling down the river of life side by side, each in our own boat and canoe, which is represented in the two-row wampum, the Creator's Law belt, which you can see a symbol of what our relationship is supposed to be. And I think, having things like that would be a true celebration of making our relationship right again. That's a solid commitment that people can do. And I would love to see that happen in our lifetime.
You and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. I know that we could speak for 3 hours, and I know that this audience would stick around the entire time, and we would still feel like it had not been enough time. I'm so grateful for you show. I mean, you just sort of exude this wisdom, and it's an incredible perspective, and I'm so grateful for it today, Doctor. I'll tell you what, if there is something that develops with regards to a link or getting that fundraising, the GoFundMe back up, you just let us know, and this audience mobilizes quickly. We've seen it before, so you let us know. We'll be more than happy to push it out across our platforms. Would love to have you back sometime with Anthony. It would be a great conversation between the two of you. You guys are just such a dynamic duo. And it's just wonderful to have a chance to connect with you again for our audience. Dr. James Makokis, a family physician from the Saddle Lake Cree Nation in northeastern Alberta. Of course, recent winner of Season 7 of The Amazing Race Canada with his husband, Anthony. He's been leading VaxFest across Treaty 6 to boost vaccinations amongst Indigenous peoples and protect the vulnerable. A nationally and internationally recognized leader and author in Indigenous health, and in particular, transgender health. Recently named to the Medical Post's 2021 Power List, and a good friend of this show. It's an honor to call you a friend. Thanks for making time for us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. And I'll get Anthony to get on that website and get it back up and running again.
That sounds good, Doc, and we'll be happy to support it in every single way we can. That's Dr. James Makokis. Just, what do you want me to say? Remarkable person. And I appreciate all the live comments that we're getting right now. Lisa says this discussion is exactly why we need to listen to First Nations, not to talk at Indigenous people. We need to stop trying to tell people what they need. That from Lisa. It's great to see Two Beaver and Randy Thunderhorse checking in today with their own thoughts. Two Beaver with maybe, I think, Sarah, one of the best compliments we've ever received on the show today. He said, Real Talk helps me be less racist against white people. I thought, that's a pretty great compliment. I really appreciate that.
But also, you can't blame them.
Oh, I'm not saying I do. I'm saying that's why I think it's a meaningful compliment. Yeah. I mean, I just, I hope that if Dr. James goes back and hears this, I mean, people are just saying they're honored to have shared this space. Sandra says this has been excellent time spent on a federal statutory holiday to think, to truly consider truth and reconciliation. Kim and Penny and Lisa and Donna and everybody else just indicating their gratitude for that time. I mean, KT, how about this? Thank you so much for your time and emotional labor today, Dr. James. BB says, yes, where women and children are honored. We have so much to learn.